Welcome to the Struggle Bubble. I'm Chad Kutting.
And I'm Craig Surgey.
We are excited to finally get this on air. We've had some technical difficulties this week, but Nate Vandegrift is joining us, a close family friend. Nate, thank you for enduring all of the technical challenges and joining us again today.
Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it. I really respect what you guys are doing here. It's pretty cool to hear your guys' conversation. I can relate to a lot of it. Already had some pretty awesome takeaways from the things you guys have said, including something I applied last weekend, which was when you get in the car and one of your kids is in there and you want to give them all the list of things they could do better, but instead you say, I love watching you play. I did that this weekend and it paid dividends. She was super excited that I didn't have a lot of critical feedback. I'm still working on making sure she knows I just love watching her play, and I don't have 10 things up my sleeve just to tell her.
That's great. It's great to hear, and appreciate you volunteering to come on board. I think your background, what you've gone through athletically in your personal life, personally, and then with the family as you continue to grow it and have your 3 young kids right now, fits squarely inside the struggle bubble mentality that we're all going through and want to bring more awareness to. So maybe we kick off there, just a little bit about that background of, who you are and, how you came up, just teeing that up. You're an athlete in high school, athlete through college. Talk to us a little bit about how you were brought up with sports in your life.
Yeah, so I grew up in Durango, Colorado, a small town in the southwestern corner of Colorado, and actually grew up on a soccer team called No Mercy. We were together. We started at U8, and we ended up disbanding at U17. We were sponsored by Mercy Medical Center, so our team name No Mercy there's a nice little overlap there. But we had a bunch of really cool guys. I had a really awesome coach who was with us the whole time, and we did really well. We had to travel quite a distance to get some good competition, and we usually got creamed by teams from California in some of the bigger tournaments, but it was pretty cool to be with those kids through those 9 years. My parents own an auto shop, so I grew up watching them work really hard to make a small business run. They worked 6 days a week for literally my entire life, and the only vacations they took were to our No Mercy soccer tournaments. So we'd plan this big vacation. We'd leave on a Friday, come back late Sunday night, and those were our vacations. We didn't do any of the Hawaii trips or anything outside of soccer trips. Those were our only vacation. So that was pretty cool growing up, and just like the only thing like really we looked forward to was soccer, and that's all we cared about, and we didn't know much else besides that.
And Nate, was that just you, or their siblings involved, or is that the 3 of you?
Yeah, I have an older brother, Jeremy. He's 18 months older than me. And then a younger brother, Alex. He's 10 years younger than me. He didn't get into competitive soccer, but me and my older brother, we played all the time. And we were on the same high school team together. In fact, when he was on the high school team, his name was Diesel. That was his nickname because my parents' auto shop was called Vandegrift Diesel. And then I came in and they're like, what are we going to do? We got 2 Diesels. You're Big Diesel and you're Little Diesel. So was known as Little Diesel in high school. And I did carry that to college too, because there was 3 Nates on our college team. And they're like, how are we going to do that? And I was like, well, they used to call me Diesel. They're like, oh, Diesel, that's so sick. We're going to call you Diesel. So actually, the folks I knew at Colorado State didn't really know my name for the longest time. They just called me Diesel. It was pretty funny.
That's the best part of sports. I'm a little let down by your teammates, though. You can have a different nickname. You don't have to do Diesel 1 and Diesel 2.
Yeah, we weren't very clever early in high school, I don't think.
Dude, Nate, with you saying that your parents owned a body shop or an auto shop, tell me the criticism that you got buying cars in California.
Oh, so you're going to love this. My family is actually pretty impulsive. And they loved new cars. So we were getting new cars every couple of years, whether we could afford them or not. And no, we had hundreds of other ones parked on the lot that were fixer-uppers, like that my dad would take on trade and stuff. But my mom and my dad always drove a pretty new vehicle growing up, which is where I get my tendencies now that I've got a real life.
So when you said I'm getting a Tesla, did your dad's jaw just drop like, well, I'm not going to be able to fix that if it breaks?
I usually would call my mom and say, hey, Mom, I'm thinking about this car. And she was a huge enabler. Oh, yeah, you deserve it. You've worked so hard. And then she calls me when she's looking for a new car. And I'm like, totally do it, Mom. Life's too short. So we're really bad for each other in terms of accountability. We're always getting new cars.
That's fantastic that even we see our kids doing that too. You know which parent to talk to based on what you want to get away with.
100%.
Oh my God, that's awesome, dude. That's so bad for you.
So through my high school journey, I played soccer all of high school. We'll get into some of the struggles that I had in there later. But from high school, went to Fort Lewis for a year and did not play soccer for that year, and then went to Colorado State and played club ball for 5 years. And then during my stint, excuse me, at Colorado State, I was recruited to come play for the Colorado Rocks, which is kind of semi-pro-ish league, and I played with them for a couple months. That was pretty awesome playing at that level. Like you could distribute the ball any direction and they're collecting it and bringing it right to their feet. They make you look better as a player. Yeah, and we were on our like third or fourth game, and I came out and slid some guy who was off sides. We ended up kicking right as I was sliding and hit my forearm, and I ended up breaking my arm during the game. And I didn't know it was broken. I thought it was just kind of a bad bruise. And I finished the game out. Went and got X-rays later, and they're like, "Yeah, it's broken." So I took I was like 4 or 5 weeks off at that point, and they had recruited a much younger, more talented goalie in that meantime. So I kind of knew the end of my semi-pro career was coming, and it was pretty tough too. I was driving an hour away for practice 5 days a week and a game on the weekends, and of course it's all unpaid, and we still had to do sponsorship stuff on the side. So it was kind of a blessing in disguise because I get to then focus a little bit more on my engineering career at Colorado State. But yeah, that was the end of the highest level I ever played at.
And you got to be a little bit of a psycho to be a goalkeeper anyway.
Well, that's a given. I say that to my kids too. They all wanted to dabble in goalie. I'm like, listen, like you got to go in hard. You can't be scared, and that's what makes or breaks people.
How old were you when you started specializing at goalie, Nate?
Well, I started soccer when I was 4 or 5, like at a really young age, and then I kind of naturally started to fall into the goalie role. I was volunteering when I was pretty young, but then like when I was 8 or 9, 10ish, I really wanted to play the field. But I had started spending so much time in goal, and I was already, so specialized at that point that nobody else on the team could play goalie as good as me. And we were on that one team. And I quite frankly wasn't as fast as most of the other players either. So like, yeah, why don't you stay in goal? And then through my like early teens, I started doing the Olympic development program in Grand Junction. So I'd go up there, and I was on the ODP state team for a couple years, where I had a starting role, and that was pretty cool. So I was realizing that, hey, if I'm one of the higher people in the state, I should definitely stick with this position. I should go try and be a backup striker or something. This is where I'm meant to be.
Yeah, I love ODP. I used to coach ODP years ago, and it's kind of changed a little bit now. It's paid to play a little bit, which is kind of sad. I kind of want to just go out and scout the best players and drive them all together.
Yeah, and it was a big deal for us too because it was 4 hours away. Like my parents had to take time off work. Sometimes we're coordinating rides, so it became this big event. Like, oh crap, you made ODP. That's a big deal. So it really kind of empowered us kids to like try our hardest once we were out there.
Yeah. When you said you're doing an engineering degree, when you told your parents you were going to do that, was your dad thinking mechanic?
Yeah, I think. Well, we had a shot. We had I kind of had to decide if I was going to help take over the shop and run my parents' business, or go into more of the schooling aspect and get a degree. And I'd always been pretty good at school. Like it pretty came pretty natural to me. So when I told them, "Hey, I think I'm going to go to college," they're like, "Yeah, definitely go." Uh, and I did the a year at Fort Lewis, which is local to Durango. And I had two reasons for that. One, I got a scholarship out of high school, and the second, I wanted to play for the soccer team. And we'll kind of get into the struggles here right now. In my senior year at high school playing soccer, I got caught drinking, and we were already 3 games into the season. I'd started all 3 games, and like I got caught drinking pretty early, and then they suspended me for 3 years. The school did, from soccer. I couldn't go to those games, and then after that. The coach he was his first year, and he was trying to send a message, and he was going to be the coach for a long
Nate,
time.
hold on. How old were you?
I was senior. That was my senior year.
So you were 17, 18,
Yep, 17.
and 3 years?
So, did I say 3 years? I meant 3 games.
Oh, I was going to say, Jesus, you like, yeah, like banned for life on the school.
So, Nate, who's the one that actually caught you drinking?
Yeah, there was a few of us at a party, and one of the kids that we didn't know really well had gotten in trouble. He was in a different sport, so he was looking to kind of not be the only one that went down. So he listed out a whole bunch of folks that were at that party. So unfortunate for me, but hey, this is it's not always everybody else's fault on this one. It was me for doing the drinking.
Did you take that accountability back then, though? That's a very
I
adult
did not.
phrase for a 4-year-old.
Oh, that's a 25-year later opinion.
Dude, he ratted you out. So he wasn't even on the soccer team.
Mm-mm.
He was on a
Well,
different, but he was at the school, obviously.
yeah,
Dude, I
yeah.
definitely hope you like left something dead and rotten in his locker.
I don't think that's the lesson we're teaching here, Craig. I think we're teaching like episode 3, accountability. Craig's the
I would have
one,
been
or Nate's the one that was
pissed.
drinking.
Yeah. Well, let me play this out for you and talk about the lessons I learned here too. So yeah, we got in trouble. I was suspended for 3 games in my high school senior year, and that turned into being not starting at all the rest of the year because the head coach was trying to set an example for the rest of the team. Our first playoff game, I was sitting the bench, and the backup goalie made a key mistake. He was out. He was not in the right position. The person shot it literally right down the middle of the goal, and he tried to make this big save to get it. And he like I remember every second of this. And he tried to make this huge save and just barely went off his fingers in the middle of the goal. And that was the only goal of the game is the one. And we lost our first playoff game my senior year. And that just killed me because I just knew that I would have just caught it. Like I would have been in the right position, would come right to me. And and yeah, just a bunch of regret
So
from that.
hold on. There's a few things there. Let me unwind this a little bit for the listeners. So you're suspended for 3 games. The coach is like, "All right, big dog, keep training, but I'm not going to start you for the whole season." There's a lot of players that after 3 or 4 games would have been like, "Peace out." Like, if you're not going to play, man, I ain't staying through this shit. I'm out. So good for you for sticking through the season. Then when this shot's happening, goalkeeper's mispositioned, trying to make a big camera shot save, and it went in. What was the first thing that came out of your mouth?
I screamed like I don't know what I said, but I was screaming on the bench, like fully geared up, just like. But then like my heart sunk because it was really close to the 90th minute, and I just knew that it was over, and we couldn't build anything the last few
Dude, a
minutes.
17-18 been dropped, and the guy makes us like, I would have been pissed. I'm like, you're shit. Told you, coach. Should have played me. Made my mistake. Like I would have been rather warm.
I had a end of year meeting with the head coach after the whole season was done, and I let him. I'd planned for it because I was so upset. I mean, soccer was life to me. Like school was a backup to my soccer. Like
Yeah,
soccer just was everything I thought of, and especially high school soccer. So for me to not play, and for him to make that choice, and for the backup goalie to make the mistake, I let him. I let him know in our follow, like, hey, you made a mistake. Like I should have been playing, and he said, yeah, that may be. That's a choice I'm going to have to live with. And at the end of it, I'm like, well, I was the one that made the choice to,
yeah.
initiate this. So
Like, good for him. He's got some balls as well because I know there's a lot. I don't get it. So let me just be European real quick. I don't understand high school. Like, I'm gonna help coach it this year, but I don't understand like live and die by it mentality because there is no professional path from high school soccer. You got to be playing academy level before you even get into high school or higher national platform to even have a chance to look at that next range. So I don't understand the intensity of high school. I understand representing your school, but I don't understand the intensity of it. Like we kind of played high school, but we didn't because we were playing at a different level at that point. So I struggle to really understand football. I still the same with football. I don't and baseball, honestly. I don't understand. Probably because the paths are different between Europe and here, but I know football and baseball is a little different because I guess you can get scattered at high school into college. Um, yeah, it's a little weird for me.
that was the path in Durango. In Durango, we didn't have any competitive soccer above, 16, 17 years old. Like it's just high school. Like when high school season starts, there's no competitive leagues going on at all because all the players are the same in that small town.
But you're normally signed by that point, 16, 17. You're normally on a scholarship somewhere.
Yeah, but again, like the talent wasn't amazing. Like it's not like people were coming to Durango High School scouting people, for MLS teams. So the path, really the only path for the locals was to go through college. Because Fort Lewis was, I think they're a Division II soccer team, and they
Okay,
they
so
had a pretty good record. So that was the path as you get to college and you go there, and that was the path I was planning on. So let me continue on with the story here. So that one mistake led to a conversation with me and the Fort Lewis College coach. And he said to me, he said, Nate, I know you're a good goalie, but I know about your past. I've talked to your high school head coach, and I'm going to work you harder than I've worked anybody ever at goalie, and you're probably not going to see a lick of playing time. And he watched me, and I basically said okay, and I walked away, and I was done. I mean, I was so frustrated that this guy could do that to me. And Craig, talking to you earlier about, hey, what do you think the coach was up to something? I never even thought about what he was doing. I just thought about me, like he's being a jerk to me. But I think you were right when you said he was testing you, and he was just kind of filtering out at that point to see how resilient you would be to that comment, to kind of project on how the season was going to go. So for me, just backing up and stepping away, it's exactly what he wanted. That way he didn't have to cut me later, or like deal with me as somebody who was going to get in trouble.
Yeah, you don't want to deal with shitty attitudes. You don't want to deal. You also it sucks cutting players. It sucks having that hard conversation, and it's like, look, if I can get around that early, then I'm gonna get around it. Are you gonna work your ass off and try and get in the team because you've had some issues in the past? Yes or no? The answer is no. Cool, you're done. I don't have to worry about you. On to the next one.
Yeah, I think
That's a lot of
I
the kids
was.
don't understand that though. Right? They have the reaction of I'm going to do what I'm going to do, and that's just me. And if you can't accept that, you can't accept that, and you don't see beyond just you. Right? There's a very personal view, whereas the coach is sitting on top of it saying, I've got 11, 15, 20, 30, whatever, football team, 50 guys, 50 girls playing here. I need to think of what's best. And sometimes that message is a little bit lost when you're not old enough or mature enough to understand it.
Well, and think about it, right? Take football as that term. Like, there's some psycho footballers that are so good, you have to have them in the team, but you know the baggage that they're coming with, and they have a team around them, so they can't. Look at Dennis Rodman, for example, in basketball, right? You knew what was coming, but could the Bulls have won all of that without him? Right? So it's like, how much is the coach and the team ready to deal with that high level of talent and that quality and having to put people around that? Or I'm just not going to deal with that and I'm done.
I think we've talked about it before as coaches, though, finding out how to elevate the game, elevate the mentality, elevate the team, and everybody's motivated differently and
Yep.
is going to respond differently. And it's a tough place to be as a coach and a player when you don't have that good communication or transparency. You're not meeting each other where you are. You're
Well, and
confusing each other.
this goes straight back to the man management. Some of the best coaches in the world are the best man managers because they know the field is going to take care of itself. The game will take care of itself as long as you train and practice and all those things. But the actual mentality side of it and the man management of getting the best out of those people when on there, especially at the elite level. What are you going to teach them? Like, can you imagine trying to coach Messi? What are you as a coach going to teach him?
I can't even
Zero.
coach my kids how to clean up a mess, let alone teach them messy.
Yes. All right. Back to it, Nate. We're getting off camera and I'm wearing a John Deere hat for a reason. So
I
let's keep
love it.
going.
I love it. Yeah, so like reflecting back now, I was such a victim to my circumstance, to the people being, trying to hold me accountable. And it wasn't my choices, it was them just being mean. And this victim mentality really continued for quite a while. So fast forward, I went to Fort Lewis for a year, did not play soccer, went to Colorado State, and I played club soccer there for 5 years. Obviously did the semi-pro thing for a little bit, and then after that, that was kind of the end of my soccer career. From Colorado State, I got recruited to John Deere in Waterloo, Iowa, and that's right. And I came out there, and I did bring my drinking habits with me at that point. So that's how I met my wife. Actually, was at a bar, and just work was pretty tough. It was hard, kind of balancing drinking as much as I was with work, and it wasn't until my wife, she was my wife at the time, we were dating. She's like, "Hey Nate, like I'm getting kind of serious. Like you've been doing a lot of drinking." And then her birthday came up, and she was going to come up and visit me, and I had chose to drink that day, and she decided not to come up. And talking with her after the fact, like the next day, she's like, "Yeah, you kind of ruined my birthday. All I wanted to do for my birthday was spend it with my boyfriend, and that really hurt." And for me, that was the first time that I really cared about somebody enough to realize that hurting them was no good, that I needed to make a huge change. And from that day on, I quit drinking. So that was 16 years ago. I
That's
just cut
wild.
it cold turkey and I said, I'm done. I had tried multiple times before that, but is what it took was, knowing that I was potentially going to lose this really important person in my life. And that pushed me over the edge to quit.
What you said a story before this. Somebody asked you to, I don't know if it was at church or something, but somebody asked you to talk about your story, and you did, and then, like they said, it could affect nobody's life, or it could affect 10 people's lives. Who knows, right? But unless you put it out there, you have no idea. So just tap onto that for us, will you, for a second?
Yeah. So after I quit drinking, I really had to change my friend group. I realized there's a bunch of people that I hung out with that were really just enablers and a lot of people that weren't friends. And then I really kind of like hunkered down for 2 or 3 years. Didn't talk about drinking at all. I'd make up excuses for why I wasn't drinking, like, hey, I've got to drive home or whatever. And then I took a class at church, and it was really kind of a self reflection class, like a 6 month class. And you're supposed to write your story of your life, and then you share it with the class publicly. And then I think there was 30 or so people in this class, and they picked the top 3 or 4 to actually share their stories in front of the entire congregation. And they saw my story and they're like, Nate, you've got a crazy story. Like, that's a lot of years drinking. That's a lot of mistakes. That's a lot of craziness in your life. And you fixed it. Like you don't drink anymore, and you've got a story to tell. Can you share this with the church? And I said no. I said nah, I'm good. There's a lot of people at John Deere around here. I don't want to like have a reputation.
Hey,
And
hey,
then
Nate. So it's brick, and this is no rehab. This is just cold turkey. Like, I'm done. Just decision
yep,
making. Like,
yep.
today's the day. Forget it. I'm over it.
Yep, cold turkey, no, nothing professional, just me holding myself accountable in a way that I finally was able to. Like I said, I tried a couple times before,
Yeah.
and I went maybe 3, 4 days, maybe a week, but nothing as significant as this one. And actually, it was more like the 3 month mark where I quit actually thinking about it. Like that was really like the how to break an addictive cycle is really that 3 month mark. Um, but anyways, I get back in the pastor that was trying to encourage me to share my story. He says, Nate, if you could impact 1 or 2 lives and maybe even save a life, would you share this story? I say, yeah, I think I would. And he's like, well, I don't think you're going to know that you're going to do that, but if you had the opportunity, I think you should share this story because it could impact somebody. I said, yeah, you're right. You're right. You're absolutely right. Like I was given this story for a reason, and I can make people's lives better if I can share my story and influence somebody to maybe quit drinking, look for help, do whatever it is. If I save like a drunk driving incident or a marriage or whatever it is, I'm going to try. And sure enough, I share my story to over 3,000 people, and a couple of people come up afterwards and say, "Hey, nice job. I'm sober too," and that was all well and good. But then 2 months later, uh, a friend at work's wife calls me and says, "Hey, you've got to talk to my husband. He just came clean. He's been drinking for the last 10 years and pretty much not telling anybody. And he just needs somebody to talk to." So I sat down with him and we started chatting, once a day for an hour. Then it went to kind of once a week. And I was just telling him my strategies and the things that I was thinking and saying to help get him through this. And to this day, the guy is sober. They had 2 healthy kids at the same time, and the relationship was struggling. The relationship's all better, happy, healthy family, and I'd like to think that maybe I was able to help that guy get through this. And so since that day, I'm just an open book about it. Like I'll talk about it. I'm not ashamed anymore like I used to be. Now it's just a fact that I went through it, and I know that a lot of people go through it. And if I can do that and help somebody else, then it's totally worth it.
Yeah, super cool, dude. It's ballsy, man. 3,000 people. You got no idea what the reaction's gonna be. It's kind of ballsy as well, but you took the right approach, right? If I can just one person hears it, then
Yeah.
there you go. I wanted to tap into really quick about we had prior guests on, Chad's high school friends, about having kids and all that, and I know you have a story there as well, and I want to get onto that, but I also want to get onto how you broke your back. But go with the kids first, and then we'll go backwards.
Yeah, so Bobby, so we ended up everything went well with our relationship after I quit drinking. She moved into town, we got engaged, got married, and she's like, "Okay, let's have kids. We're married, let's go." And I wasn't really like I was like, "Okay," just kind of playing along. All her friends had kids at this point. And after a year and a half of trying, we couldn't get pregnant. So then we started doing all these tests, and we realized that she was perfectly healthy. I had some challenges, so we did a couple surgeries. None of them worked. We still couldn't get pregnant. We were told you guys aren't going to ever have kids, which was the worst thing for a man to ever hear. And then we went to Iowa City, and they looked at all our data, and they're like, "No, you guys are actually really good candidates for in vitro." So we got pretty excited about that. We went through in vitro. We had to get funding. It was like $25,000 at the time, and we were successful. And we got our first daughter, Natalie. And then we're like, "Oh, we're not done yet." So we immediately went to round two, got Emma. We were so pumped, and then we went through round three. We knew we wanted three kids, and the third one was not successful, unfortunately. And that was a really good reminder that, hey, like, this isn't just a plug and play operation. Like, you gotta, like, everything's got to be right. And then we went through the fourth time, and we were pregnant with our son Caden. So we have three awesome kids. They're all playing competitive soccer. Like, this is a dream come true. But I'll tell you, by not being able to have children up front, it really changes your heart. And like, I just knew that I needed to be a dad. And like, if we would have gotten pregnant right away, I wonder about the dad I would have been as compared to a dad who struggled to start a family. That really changed my heart. And now I know these kids are so, so, so special, and I would do anything for them. And I'm trying to be the best parent that I can be.
Yeah, dude, that's why. So you have your first kid, and you let her be a goalkeeper. Interesting. Uh,
Aiden wants to be a goalkeeper too, Craig.
and I know you do something really cool with your kids as well. Just kind of just touching on that, being the best parent, best dad you can be. You do was it 1 day a week, one kid, daddy, date night?
Close, close, close. So like, I did notice that one of my kids wasn't being as open to me as I thought we should be, but very open to mom. I was like, I need to connect with this one, and I started daddy kid date night every Friday night. So we have three kids and a wife. So
Every
every
Friday
Friday I would
you're
take the
out.
kids out, and then I'd have date night with Bobby. And I only started this like 4 months ago. So each person gets, a couple 2-3 hours with just dad, and we get to connect and talk about life. And one of the things I didn't have growing up with it was this openness about emotions and how you're feeling and thinking and what's going on in your life with my parents. And I really want to open that door with my kids. So I try and like ask them, some hard questions about like friends and how they're feeling and is life stressful. And we really get down into the nuts and bolts. And some open up. Sometimes I get something. Sometimes it's just like, yeah, dad, quit asking. That's annoying.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool though. I like that approach of trying to get a little bit deeper with the kiddos. And then going on to like your health. Like I know Nate, obviously everyone listening from quite a while ago, Chad and I both know, and from a broken back, and we mountain bike ride, right? So I know you're still trying to get after it on the adrenaline rush. Broken back, heart attack, what other stupid stuff's happened?
Yeah. So when I was drinking, I had zero regard for safety and health. So broken toes, separated shoulder, playing softball. I was doing all this drinking, and then I one time skiing when I was 19. I built a kicker on a head wall and was doing a backflip to show a buddy that I could do it. And we'd been drinking all morning, and I did 1.5 rotations, landed on the back of my head, and I got a T8 compression fracture skiing. It's like just nonsense, like no fear, regard for no like safety at all for my life. And honestly, so like I once I had buttoned up my little drinking career and kind of packaged that, I was like really healthy and like things were going well, so I thought. And then this was 2019. I went and did an extreme workout. I did these kickboxing high intensity workouts, and I had a sustained high heart rate in the 190s throughout that entire hour. And I didn't actually know that at the time.
And this is pre Apple Watch, like you had no idea,
No, I
or
was wearing my Apple Watch. That's how I knew
oh,
all that.
okay, okay.
Yeah. So I went back and looked at this data. I wasn't watching my heart rate at the time. It didn't mean anything to me. I was just tracking kind of how many calories I was burning. Well, anyways, the next Monday, I kind of felt crappy all weekend. Next Monday, I went back and tried to do the same workout, and I couldn't get my heart rate like above 170. I just felt kind of crummy. Went home and I got this chest pain while I was rocking my son to sleep. And the pain started radiating up into my neck. And I was telling my wife, and she's like, "We got to go to the hospital." I'm like, "No, it's just some acid reflux. I just drank a sparkling water," like kind of resisting. She's like, "I'm calling the neighbors, get in the car, we're going." Went to the hospital. They're like, "Nate, you're having a heart attack."
You in California at that point, or you
No, no, it's
still
still Iowa. So we
Iowa?
went to like the smallest, closest hospital who barely had any protocol equipment to diagnose me. So I'm like, they're like, "All right, well, you got to go to this other hospital." I was like, "All right, we'll just drive there." They're like, "No, no, no, the ambulance is backed up here. You're going across town." It's like lights and sirens blaring all the way across town. I'm like, "Oh, this is kind of serious." We get there and I'm like, "Oh, this is really serious." They lie me down on this big metal stretcher. There's, seven, eight, nine nurses in the room dressed, in these complete scrubs. And I'm like, "Oh crap, like this is for real." And I was like, "You know what? I've had a pretty good life. Like it's been pretty long. I've done a lot of cool
How old
things."
were you?
This was 5 years ago, 6 years ago. So 2019. So I was 37. Yeah, 37. And I'm like, "Wait a minute, this is I haven't had what am I talking about? I got three young kids at home and a wife that needs me. I got to get through this. This is really important. Like, do you know what I went through to get these kids? Like, I just huge mind shift about like I'm getting through this. So I start talking to the nurses and just really trying to connect with them and let them know that, hey, I'm a dad of three young kids. I'm young, like I've been healthy my whole life. Like just really trying to give them the best knowledge of me so they could do a really good job on whatever surgery they were going to do. And it was ended up just being an angiogram. And they went in there and they looked at my coronary artery, which was half blocked with a blood clot. So I had high blood pressure, way too high of a heart rate in a workout, and it ruptured a little bit of my coronary artery, causing a blockage. And I tried to push a bunch of blood through that blockage on the Monday, resulting in the heart attack. So public safety announcement: go get your blood pressure, listen to your doctor, and do everything you need to keep your blood pressure low and heart rate where it's supposed to be.
Damn,
Was it
dude.
happening in slow motion? Like, what is the kind of mindset you say you kind of flip flop those emotions where you're like, all right, I'm okay, I'm come to terms with it, and then flipped it. I'm just curious, as you're sitting there, it's got to be a bit of a lonely feeling, where you're a helpless feeling. You can't physically do anything. You're in their care. What's the mindset?
Yeah, actually cried. So I'm lying when it hit me. It hit me so hard that the tears were coming down my face. I'm just lying there trying to figure out what to do, thinking about my kids. Like, is this really like, am I done? What the heck is happening? And so I had about probably 30 seconds of just shedding tears. So that was the transition. It was like, nothing's wrong. This is silly to, oh crap, this is real. Emotion of scared and then completely transition to like energy, like, okay, I'm gonna get through this. I've got to work the room. I've got to do my magic. And yeah, granted, none of those nurses like were in control of what was going to happen, and they didn't affect the outcome at all. But that's the only thing I could think of to do to make my outcome as good as it could be.
I said, well, I'm glad they did the best they could. I'm glad you cheered them up to do their job so that you could be there. It, the the transition mentally that you go through after an event like that. So you battle to have the kids, you battle to save your own life. You move to Silicon Valley. You're in high pressure situations all the time with where you work and the person you want to be at work. But also we see the dad that you want to be, the husband you want to be at home. How do you find that balance, or how do you push towards that balance to keep priorities straight for you?
It's tough. I don't have it figured out. One of the things that I do default to though is if it's a straight competition between family and work, family is always going to win. Right? Family is My kids aren't always going to be young. They're never going to be asking to go throw the football in the backyard. If it's a child or a life event, that is always number one. If I'm going to miss the next promotion because of it, it's totally worth it. Right? So I always try and pivot to the family side. And It's tough though. Like Bobby is traveling this week, so I've got the three kids on the other side of that wall watching TV. It's my nanny right now. Like it's what I have to do to be able to get through life and and work. And we try and find that balance, but knowing that you should default to family, I think is what works the best for me.
Absolutely. So with a few minutes we have left, Nate, what are some pieces of advice, some Nate pearls of wisdom that you want to impart on our listening audience?
Yeah, well, one of the insights I have, I'm constantly looking at leadership development stuff because I have a big team at Apple. I have a team at Apple, and I love leadership and seeing how I can change and the culture of my team. And I also try and apply that here at the house. So actually implemented Vandegrift values with our family here. The kids came up with 10 things they think are really important for to be a Vandegrift, including, working hard and respecting others, like the generic ones. And then I implemented it at work too. We went through and we put our values together as a larger team about being material science experts. And it's been pretty cool how to see like that framework. Some aren't too receptive to it, but some like can really double down on it. And the reason I tell you that is I went to a global leadership summit a couple months ago, and one of the speakers there was talking about we're always focused on what legacy that we're going to leave. And that had been my life all the way, especially through my drinking years. Like, I'm going to be a soccer player that's going to do as much as I can. I'm going to be an engineer and grow as art. But it was always me focused. So, as what he says is quit asking yourself, what is my legacy? And instead ask yourself, who is my legacy? Not what is my legacy, but who is my legacy? And then boom, light went on. My kids, 100% my legacy. I have to be able to give them all of the skills, life skills, morals that they need to be so successful. And that's where all my energy goes. So I would encourage anybody who's listening to this, if you're so focused on you, maybe try asking the question differently to see if that'll impact your life at all.
Fantastic advice, especially as all of us are going through at our own different speeds, our own different perspectives, just grounding ourselves a bit and what truly is important, what we want everybody to remember. Nate, we really appreciate you coming on, and I think you're the one that did the most homework as a guest. So not a shot at Austin Stephanie, but Nate always comes prepared, and I think it shows based on everything you've gone through and how you approach life on a daily basis. For everybody listening, if you haven't already, please follow us on Instagram at the Struggle Bubble Pod. We're posting all of our content and give you a sneak peek into future episodes. And remember, today's episode sponsored by X2O Studios, locations in Danville and Los Gatos, still offering 20% off new class packs. Go ahead and sign up today. Use the Struggle Bubble as your discount code. Which one of you wants to send us off with a catchphrase?
Come on, Nate. You got it, Nate.
I'll do the honorary catchphrase. By the way, thanks, Chad and Craig, for having me on. This is really cool. Keep up the great work. And remember, everybody, if you're in a struggle, call the bubble.
Yes.
Let's go. All right, everybody. Until next week.